presentation, the rest of the presentation, it's sort of divided into some FAQs, common things we get asked and concerns from our customers about the whole cloud solution. And then we're going to do a demonstration of a 3-step process of moving to the cloud. And it's not a deep dive or a real technical presentation by any means, and I'll admit I'm skipping a couple little steps here and there, but none of them are significant. So I think the takeaway from today that you should have is that it really is very painless, very seamless, very easy to do, and should not be a monumental effort. We've done many of these now, and for the most part, they go off without a hitch through great preparation and planning. So here we go. A SalesLogix cloud instance, when you sign up for the cloud, is pre-configured and ready to use with an empty production database. What that means is it has all of the pieces and parts that constitute an on-premise SalesLogix system already up and actually running in the cloud. So you actually do have a blank SalesLogix database you can log into, and then once your user licenses are installed in the cloud, all your users, all your data, and all your customizations are going to be there as well. And that's what I'm going to kind of walk through in the presentation of how exactly does that happen. If the customer is moving from on-premise to the cloud, we're going to be transferring your existing data. Typically, the entire process, start to finish, takes about 30 minutes to an hour for a real production system. I'm going to greatly accelerate that today and skip over watching the hourglass spin and so forth, just to keep things moving along. And obviously, you access it through a browser, just like your users do today. Instead, though, of pointing their browser to some intranet or internal web server that you have, you'll be pointing them to your custom cloud URL, which typically is something like cfx@SalesLogixCloud.com. So it's a very simplified URL and a simple step to complete that. And what exactly do you get? So when you sign up for the cloud, everybody probably already knows, I don't think it's a mystery, that they use Amazon as their hosting provider. So unlike a tenant-style system like a Salesforce.com, where it's one big giant data center and everybody's data kind of lives in the same place, distributed around the country, when you sign up for the cloud, you're actually getting 2 Windows servers that are networked together through Amazon. Now, from a user perspective, this is all pretty much irrelevant because it won't look any different or perform or behave any different than what they're used to today. But for those on the phone that are administrators or have to administrate the solution, that's a lot of what I'm going to talk about today, is exactly how does that happen and what are we getting with the cloud. So again, you get 2 servers, 2 virtual servers on Amazon. They are networked together, so one can see the drives of the other. One of them is the database server, and that's going to have Microsoft SQL running on it, and that's where your database itself is going to live and reside. And then that's networked with a web server. And they do that for load balancing and performance reasons. SalesLogix just runs best and the most efficiently when you separate out those 2 major components of the solution, and that's exactly how they've designed it with the SalesLogix Cloud. The other thing you get is, in the upper left corner, you'll see that you have access to customer support. There is a specific cloud support team they call the operations team, and then there's actually your regular SalesLogix customer support team. So those of you that have a maintenance and support contract, you're already used to talking to customer support about SalesLogix bugs or issues or problems you're having, and that will remain. As a cloud subscriber, you get a support contract just as you always have for unlimited support. So it's actually equal to the gold level of maintenance and support for on-premise. But then in addition, there's an operations team that you may want to call on or work with, and those are the folks at Sage that actually manage the infrastructure, the servers themselves, and they can do things like upgrades for you if you're on their free upgrade program. So you have 2 teams available to you. And then customer effect doesn't go away. If we're your business partner, we will continue to be your business partner. And so all the things you're used to working with us on, training, development, customizations, consulting, that kind of thing, all stays the same. We're still involved, and you're still our client. On the next slide, the way you access your 2 Amazon servers is through Microsoft Remote Desktop. For any IT people on the phone, you're probably doing that all day, every day anyway. So just like any server that you own or workstation that you own today that you remote desktop into to administer, that's exactly how you administer your server and back-end components of the SalesLogix cloud system. So there's nothing proprietary or new to learn or understand. Microsoft Remote Desktop is a free software application that's part of all Windows environments. You're given a username and a password to log into the servers, and you can do anything you could traditionally do on a server that you own on those 2 cloud servers. Now, once you log into those cloud servers, I just want to talk a little bit about what's there when you get there. And there's already 2 browsers installed. We prefer Firefox, well, it is a higher performance browser. Just works better and faster with SalesLogix. But Internet Explorer is also loaded on those Amazon boxes. All of the typical Sage, SalesLogix, and Crystal reports are all installed, loaded, completely configured and functioning as well, like your administrator application, the architect, the application architect, speed search, all the clients, connection manager. That stuff is all going to be there when you log in initially. It's all part of the standard AMI or Amazon image that you get when you sign up for the cloud. There's also a tool up there. They've got antivirus software up there to protect files coming and going from viruses. And it also includes on the database server Microsoft SQL 2008 along with Visual Studio 2008 as a development shell. And there's also some event viewers and services viewers. Again, pretty standard Windows Server stuff is all there as you would expect it is. The other thing you can do, and this is part of the FAQs, is as a general rule, it's always best to do development work in a backup environment. We don't want to do development in a live production SalesLogix database. That's just good practice. So how do you do that in the cloud? Well, for every month of your cloud subscription, you get 1 day of a free staging environment. And so what happens is if you have a development project you want to start on or work on, you just let Sage know that, and they spin off a clone or a copy of your production SalesLogix system in a 3rd cloud instance, and that enables you to do offline development, offline testing, and configuration changes. And then just like you would save those changes in a bundle or a virtual file system in an on-premise system, you can then move those changes you made, once they're ready to go. You can move them into your production server, and then they will shut down at your request this staging environment. So an example of that would be if you have a 36-month cloud contract, you're entitled to 36 days of the staging environment, and you can stop and start the staging environment so the clock isn't running when you're not using it, however it's convenient for you to do that. The migration process itself is quite literally 3 simple steps. We have to copy and restore your database from your on-premise SQL Server to the cloud SQL Server. We have to zip up and move your file attachments and your library attachments, which are in 2 folders on your on-premise servers. So we zip those up and we move those to the cloud and put them in the right folders on the cloud. And then finally, you would move your cloud or your web customization. You only have to do that 3rd step if your customizations are not contained in the database itself. Most clients, the customizations are contained in the database. So this really would only apply to those that have customizations in a separate drive or a separate server outside of the database. but I'll show you that just briefly anyway during the demonstration. So again, we'll transfer your database, and I'm going to show you, there's a couple of ways to do that, and even though these are cloud virtual servers sitting up on Amazon somewhere in the world, they have several data centers, you still have the ability to connect your on-premise servers to that cloud server, and that's what I'll show you today. I actually mapped a drive of my local machine, the machine I'm sitting in front of. I mapped that drive to my cloud server, and I see that inside of Windows Explorer, and it shows up as a shared drive, just like any other mapped or shared network drive would for an on-premise system. That's one method for moving these big files around. You can also do it through an FTP site. They do have an FTP client called FileZilla. It's a freeware FTP client on the cloud server. So if you prefer to move your data from on-premise to the cloud to an FTP site that you have, you can do it that way as well. It's your choice. It's just two different mechanisms to get the same thing done. We're going to restore the SalesLogix database to the cloud, so I'll walk you through that just briefly. We're going to move your file attachments from their current location up to the cloud so that when your users click on an attachment, once they're in the cloud, they're going to be where SalesLogix expects them to be. So there should be no hiccups with that. And then finally, we'll show you how to create a bundle or a virtual file system of your customizations if those are located on a different server and not in the database. And we'll show you how to apply that into the cloud. And then finally, you do have a couple of client-side tasks that would have to be performed. One of them would be that you have to, if you're using IntelliSync for calendar and contact syncing, you do have to change the path that software is using, along with the integration manager, which is handling your Outlook integration for emails. You will have to visit each workstation on-site or remote desktop into them and just change the path that the SData integration manager is looking at, so it stops pointing at your on-premise install and looks at the cloud install. And then finally, you'll just change the user's browser shortcut so that it points to your new cloud system. Okay, so we're done with that, and I'm sorry if that was a little bit long, but I thought it would make sense to give you that overview first. Okay, so like we talked about, for moving the database, Microsoft SQL Server Management Studio is included on the cloud server. This is a free download from Microsoft if you don't have it already. And for step one, we're going to copy or back up your on-premise production database and create one big zip file from it and move it to the database server on the cloud. And SQL Server Management Studio is a great tool to do that. And again, it's included for free on the cloud. If you don't have it, you can download it from Microsoft on your own SQL Server to create that backup file. So I've logged into that today. Here's the database that we're going to back up and restore. You're going to kind of have to work with me because I'm going to show you both operations on one server, but obviously you should do the backup on your on-premise server, and then you open the same application and you do the restore on the cloud server. So that's just a matter of right-clicking on the database, the blank database that's already there. You click into tasks and you do a backup, and you get a dialog box in SQL that says, okay, you're going to make a full backup set. You want to catch all the data. So there's a few settings here that you would want to check. A lot of this is already set this way by default, so I really didn't have to change anything, and it just came up this way in my system anyway. So I'm doing a full backup. What do you want to call it? And then where do you want to back it up to? So basically, you just pick the path on that shared drive on your system that you want to put the database back up, and then you click OK, and I'm not going to do that because it takes a couple minutes, and it's going to create, again, a backup of your entire database and put it on this path. So you would then log into the cloud server, the SQL server, through remote desktop, just like we're doing here today. Go into the SQL Management Studio there, find the blank database, right-click again, and now you're just going to reverse that operation and do a restore, and you're going to restore from a file, and you're going to save from a device. You're going to go out and try and find, well, where did you put that backup file, and you'll know that because you did it. And in my particular case, I just put it in the backup folder. That's part of the SQL directory. Click OK, and go ahead and let it complete this restore operation. And that's now going to put your production database that you backed up into the cloud. It's going to overwrite the blank database, and now all of your data is going to be there in that system automatically. So that's step one. And again, this part alone, maybe takes 10 or 15 minutes if you have a really big database. On the demo system, it took about 5 minutes for me to complete this part of the operation. And then the second step would be, you need to find out where your attachments are. And the way you do that, your attached files and your library documents, if you log into the administrator on your on-premise system, and you go into the Systems area on the nav bar, Offices tab, and double-click on your office, you'll see the path down here. This is going to tell you where SalesLogix currently is storing all of your library documents, and then also all of your attached files. So any files that are sitting in an Attachments tab anywhere in your SalesLogix, this is where they're all going to be. And so the next step in this process is to go to that directory and create a zip file. Just grab those folders, zip them up. You can do it in one folder or one file or two files, doesn't matter. And then the final part of the procedure is you're going to look at your local drive now, which is the C drive on this local machine, my laptop in front of me, because that's my pretending that's my on-premise server. This is going to let me look at that drive and go find that zip file I just created by doing this. It's a little slow because it's running all this data across the internet, of course, but it's not a huge thing because you're really only moving one or two files to do this. So once you find your backup files, you can literally copy and paste just like you could in any Windows environment. So you can copy that file from your local drive up to the appropriate folder on the cloud system. And then once you're done with moving that, you just unzip those files in that folder location, and that's the end of that step. So very simple procedure, just using, again, standard Windows Explorer tools and dragging and dropping and copying and pasting. And then finally, again, I was going to show you anybody that has customized their web client today, you'll want to log into the application architect. This is step 3, and you're going to want to open up the virtual file system, the Deployment Explorer, and the Virtual File Explorer. And then down at the bottom here, you'll see this VFS file, and that's where your entire website is contained. All the changes you've made, all the web pages, any modifications you've made, they're all going to be sitting in this VFS file on this path. So I right-clicked on that, and I'm going to choose Back Up the Project. Now this is on-premise. You're going to back up your project, and because it's the entire virtual file system, this constitutes your entire SalesLogix website, which is every view, every form, every customization you've ever made to the system is going to be bundled up in this file. And just like we showed you how to move the file through Windows Explorer from your local drive up to the cloud system, you would move the backup file that resulted and then just reverse this procedure and do a restore after opening up the application architect in the cloud. And again, it takes a couple of minutes for this whole operation to complete. But once you've done these 3 steps, you are now officially moved into the cloud, because every piece and part of the SalesLogix web system is contained in the database, in those file folders, and in this virtual file system backup. So that's the entire step. So Brianna, that's everything I was hoping to show today. Again, it was fast forwarding through a lot of the pieces and parts, but does anybody have any questions that need to be addressed?
Yeah, Scott, we do have some questions that came in. I'll start with this one. Can you purchase X amount of staging environment time? The 1 day per subscription month would not work for us.
You can. You can purchase it. You can purchase extra days. I don't have the pricing in front of me, but yes, if the free 1 day per month per contract isn't enough, the answer is yes. You can purchase from your business partner additional staging days as needed.
All right. Well, let's look at the next one here. Make sure I didn't skip any. Okay, here we go. Can we host the cloud on our own servers?
No. You can have SalesLogix Web running on your own servers, but the cloud is a choice you make to convert from on-premise to a subscription-based off-site hosted solution. So instead of paying the annual maintenance and support to Sage for your on-premise software, you convert that to a monthly subscription at so much a month per user, and you get the whole Amazon cloud environment. So as of right now, your two choices are either on-premise or the cloud.
All right. The next one I have here is if you have no remote users, what's the advantage of moving to the cloud?
The advantages really are cost. It is considering all the cost of ownership that goes into an on-premise solution, the cost of annual maintenance and support, the cost of your staff managing and maintaining hardware and servers. Their time is not cheap in most cases, and neither is the hardware to keep that functioning and working. So the advantage really comes down to total cost of ownership. In many customers' cases, is less with the cloud solution, and it enables their IT staff, their support staff, if you're outsourcing IT, to use those resources somewhere else other than managing and maintaining the CRM system.
Okay, the next one I have is once we load the cloud, will we still have access to the local system?
Yes, yes, you do. You don't have to surrender the licenses. You don't have to erase your system or anything like that. In fact, a lot of clients keep it for, just reference purposes. Obviously, you don't want your users using the on-premise system, but if you want to use it just as a backup or as a reference tool to look back at the on-premise system, Sage doesn't have any rules or requirements about getting rid of it or deleting it. It's yours to keep forever and ever.
Okay. The next one I have, and I think we may have gone over this in the questions, but won't hurt to throw it out again. If you're not on 7.5.4 yet, can you connect the LAN client to the cloud backend server?
Boy, there probably is a way to do that. Amazon has what they call virtual PC connectivity that lets their servers connect to your domain, your on-premise domain, and kind of act like a seamless server-to-server connection. There is an extra cost for that from Amazon and from Sage to do that. I've never had anybody do that, but technically it is possible to do that. And there is pieces and parts in place that would let you do it. I'm not sure what the business driver would be behind that, but the answer would be yes, you could do it.
Okay. The next one I have, I don't think we can really answer, but I'll throw it out. What does it cost to import our database to the cloud?
Well, if you're already on SalesLogix 7.5.4, there is no cost. You can do it yourself, just like I demonstrated today, the simple 3-step migration. So I think that would be the answer, that there is no cost to do that. Just move the database up there.
Unless you require assistance. Okay, our next question is, can the LAN version also be moved to cloud servers?
No. The cloud is web only, and no LAN clients are supported at this time.
Right, so what you would need to do then is upgrade your current LAN to the web version and then migrate it over to the cloud.
That's correct, yep.
Okay. Will we lose any of our SalesLogix data when we move to the cloud? I think that's a big one for a lot of people.
Absolutely not. It's a 100% complete backup and restoration of your on-site production system. You know, of course, what you'd want to do is forewarn your users, hey, we're moving to the cloud tonight or whatever, and log out, stop using the system at such and such a date and time, and until I tell you otherwise, you know, you're going to be logging into this new cloud server. So the only thing that's at risk here is if your users do access the on-premise system after you copied your database to the cloud. That's going to present a problem because you've now got two different systems in use. So we generally recommend disabling the users in the on-premise system so they cannot go into it and make changes to it once the cloud's been deployed.
Okay. How much storage space are you given with a cloud subscription, and is it on a per user or a company basis?
It is on a company basis, and it has 100 gigabytes of storage for all cloud users. And you can purchase an additional 100 gigabytes of storage to get you to 200 gigabytes for another $50 a month for the whole company. Now, that 100 gigabytes does not include the actual database. They don't care how big that is. Your database can be as big as it needs to be. So when we're talking about 100 gigabytes of storage, that's for your file attachments. And that would be a lot of file attachments to get to 100 gigabytes.
Okay. How are upgrades handled in the cloud?
If you have your customizations in a virtual file system and you save them in a bundle, they will actually do that for you at no cost. And a lot of our clients do that. So one of the other advantages to it is the cost of ownership is so much less once you get to the cloud because their operations team can actually enroll you in their automatic upgrade program. So every time there's a new service pack or hot fix, they'll actually perform the upgrade for you on your cloud system at no cost. Now, the danger in that is that if you have a customized system, it's your responsibility to put your customizations back in the event that the service pack or hotfix overwrote something that you had done. So there is a risk of that. And they don't just do it without telling you. They schedule that with you. So Sage Operations schedules a time that's suitable for you so that if you do have to put back your customizations, that you have time in your schedule to be able to do that.
Okay, the next one I have here refers to SalesLogix versions, and the question is, can we update from 7.5.1 to the cloud?
That's a two-part answer. You would first have to upgrade to 7.5.4, and typically for Customer FX customers, we would do that in a test environment on some of our servers first. So step one is you do have to be on 7.5.4, and step two would be this migration to the cloud that we looked at today.
Okay. Next question, can the on-premise system be used as a staging area?
Yes, absolutely. Yep, if you've got a 7.5.4 web environment on-premise, which you do if you're considering moving to the cloud, of course you do. So the answer is yes, you can do your customizations on-premise, save those in a bundle, move that bundle file up to the cloud, and then apply that into your cloud production environment, that's actually an excellent way to do this without having to deal with that staging environment we talked about earlier.
Oh, sorry, I had myself on mute. Our next question is, does Amazon Cloud offer SSL for some compliance issues?
Yes.
All right, that was easy. Okay, how do plugins, knowledge sync, etc. work with this version?
Sage does support those. There's an extra charge for some of those modules. Knowledge sync, for example, you can run it in the cloud and on the cloud server, but there is an extra cost for that. That particular module, there is an extra cost.
Okay.
And by the way, while I had a minute here, I looked up the cost of the staging environment, and it is $20 a day. So you have 1 day included for every day of your subscription, your contract length, but if you want to buy additional days, it's $20 a day, which is pretty reasonable.
Okay. Are all Crystal reports migrated to the cloud, including those that we generated for our company?
Yes. Because the Crystal reports themselves are stored in the SalesLogix database, they automatically are migrated when you copy and restore, you back up and restore your database. All those Crystal reports are contained in the database, so they also are migrated automatically.
Okay. Can you choose not to have upgrades applied?
Yes. And some clients choose not to because they have complicated customization. Sage does not force you to upgrade. That's the client's choice. You can pick and choose what, when or what you want them to upgrade or not. So the answer is it's completely in the control of the client, the customer.
Okay. Another question about compliance is, what about PCI compliance on Amazon?
I don't know what PCI is.
I don't either. We can look into that and get back to the asker of that question. Okay. Can Scribe integrations run from the cloud?
That, again, is kind of a yes and no. Because you do have access through map drives, if your Scribe integration jobs are connecting through a drive path to the SQL database, the answer is yes. You could configure it through either the virtual PC connector, which is, again, an extra cost for the cloud, or potentially through remote desktop or other remote access tools. So that's kind of a qualified yes. What Sage does not want you to do is install Scribe on the cloud server. They are very concerned about keeping these cloud servers clean and pristine. They don't want extra applications running that could impact the performance or break something on the deal. So the answer is kind of a qualified yes, maybe. There is ways to do that, and we actually have customers that are doing that.
You know what, Scott? I think that's it. I have one that we can get back to offline, okay?
Okay. Well, terrific. Thanks, Brianna, for helping with this, and thanks, everyone, for joining us today. And stay tuned for the next demystifying of SalesLogix in this series. Hopefully that one will be interesting as well. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Bye.